I was staring at my bookshelf this morning, just looking at the spines of all these books I've read over the years. And I had this realization that was, honestly, a little depressing.
Oh, really? What was that?
Books they die. I mean, not literally, obviously, but the relationship dies. You read a novel, you get the plot, maybe you underline a profound sentence or two, and then you put it back on the shelf, and there it sits.
Right, it just becomes furniture at that point.
Exactly. You don't go back to it expecting it to change your life again. It's a very been there, done that dynamic.
That is essentially the law of diminishing returns. The first read is a discovery, the second is a review, and the third usually feels like a chore. The magic fades because the information itself is static.
But then we open up the source material for today's deep dive, and it is describing a text that claims to break that law entirely. It describes a book that isn't static. It describes it almost like a living entity, a companion that breathes.
Which is a fascinating paradox.
It really is. It says if you're lonely, it sits with you. If you're afraid, it acts as a fortress. It claims that the more you read it, the newer it actually becomes.
And that is the perfect entry point for our discussion today. We are looking at a deep theological exploration titled The Majesty and Purposes of the Noble Quran. And you're right to focus on that living aspect because this source isn't just a manual on how to read the Quran. It is a comprehensive argument for what the Quran actually is.
And it's a heavy claim right out of the gate.
Yeah.
The author isn't pulling punches here. He's arguing that this book is the glory and honor of an entire civilization. It's not just a religious accessory, it's the main event.
Right. The term the source uses is izzah, which translates to dignity or glory. And the text makes a historical argument here that is quite bold. It says to look at the timeline. This community, this ummah, started as a group of scattered tribes. They had no central power, no massive influence, no real standing on the world stage. Then they received this text, and suddenly they rise.
It connects the dots directly. It argues that the text was the elevator. The source says the nation rises only when it elevates the Quran and falls when it opposes it.
Precisely. It uses this metaphor of the Quran being the key to their glory. It's a direct cause and effect argument. When the community held fast to the text, they led the world in science, philosophy, and governance. When they abandoned it...
When it became just furniture.
Exactly. When it became furniture, they fell behind.
That reminds me of that line about the rope of God. If you let go of the rope, gravity just takes over.
That is exactly the implication. But what I found so compelling in this source is that it doesn't just talk about the political or historical impact, it talks about the sensory impact. Usually when we analyze religious texts, we look for rules, commandments, the thou shalt nots. But this source focuses on feeling. It describes the text as a visceral experience.
Yeah, I caught that too. There's this section where it talks about the descriptions of the afterlife. It says when this text speaks about paradise, it's not just listing amenities or abstract concepts. It says it is as if you see it. It's trying to trigger a visual hallucination almost. And then for the alternative...
The description of hell.
Right. It says it is as if you hear it sizzling.
That word stopped me in my tracks too. Sizzling. It's an auditory trigger. The source is arguing that the Quran isn't meant to be processed just by the intellect or the logical brain. It's meant to bypass the filter and hit the nervous system. It's designed to be heard, to resonate.
Which perfectly explains the companion idea we touched on. The source has this beautiful line saying it sits with the worried and brings reassurance. It's personifying the ink and paper. It's saying this book has a personality. It's a friend that doesn't bore you and a guide that doesn't mislead you.
And it has a very specific function, which is curing loneliness. The source says he who makes it his partner, his loneliness is cured. In a modern context where we are hyper-connected digitally but statistically lonelier than ever, that's a massive claim. It suggests the text acts as a presence. It literally absorbs the anxiety of the reader.
Okay, so if this book is a person or a companion, we need to know who we're dealing with. The source spends a lot of time on the names of the Quran. And I get the feeling these aren't just poetic titles, they're job descriptions.
That's a great way to put it. In this source, the names define the function. For example, it lists al-nur, which means the light.
Right, and light illuminates. It takes a dark room and makes it navigable.
Exactly. It suggests the text is a tool for navigating confusion. But then look at al-furqan, the criterion, or the distinguisher.
That one feels particularly relevant to the information overload age we live in right now.
It is incredibly relevant. The source explains al-Furqan as the tool that allows you to separate truth from falsehood when the lines are blurry. It's a lens. If you view the world through it, you can see what's real and what's a mirage. It distinguishes the good from the bad, the temporary from the eternal.
And then there's al-Shifa, The healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And notice it doesn't say the medicine. Medicine implies a treatment that might work or might not. Shifa implies the cure itself. But the attribute that really anchors all of this for me was the concept of protection. The source asserts the text is protected from error.
Falsehood cannot approach it from before it or behind it.
Think about that spatial language, before it or behind it. It's implying that no matter how time moves forward into the future or what historical revisionism happens regarding the past, the text stands in a sort of protected bubble. In a world of fake news, retractions, and shifting narratives, the source presents this text as the unmovable object.
Speaking of unmovable objects, we have to talk about the stars. Because this was the moment where I felt the source took a hard left turn into astrophysics.
I had a feeling you'd latch onto that. It is a very striking moment in the text.
I mean, come on, I'm reading through this theological treatise, and suddenly we're talking about celestial mechanics. The source brings up this specific oath from Surah Al-Waqiah.
No, I swear by the positions of the stars.
And the source makes a huge deal out of this. It says the text itself calls this a mighty oath. Why? What's the connection between a star's orbit and a verse of Scripture?
It's an argument from design, and it's surprisingly scientific. The source highlights the vastness of the cosmos. Think about the precision required to keep a galaxy from collapsing, the mathematical perfection of celestial orbits, gravity, trajectory, mass. If one planet is slightly off, the whole system can fail.
It's order, absolute cosmic order.
Exactly. The source is saying the same author who calibrated the gravity of the stars is the author who arranged the verses of this book. It's linking the book of nature, the universe, with the book of Revelation. It implies that the moral laws in the Quran are as objective and real as the laws of physics. You can't cheat gravity, and the source argues you can't cheat this text.
That creates a serious sense of authority. It's not just saying, here is some good advice for your life. It's saying this is the fabric of reality.
Which sets up the challenge. You can't talk about the Quran's authority without talking about the standing challenge mentioned in the source.
Ah, yes, this is the prove me wrong moment.
It is. The source reminds us that the text challenges not just humans, but the jinn, the unseen spirits, to collaborate. It says to get your best poets, your best thinkers, your philosophers, and try to produce one chapter that matches this structure, this eloquence, this impact.
And the verdict according to the source.
They never could. The source frames this as the ultimate proof of its divine origin. It's a linguistic miracle that defies replication. It emphasizes that this isn't the speech of a human. It is the speech of the Lord of the worlds, the wise, the praiseworthy.
Okay, so we've established what the book is. It's cosmic, it's protected, it's alive. But I want to pivot to the practical side, because the source shifts gears really abruptly here. We go from positions of the stars to, what, mortgage rates?
It does zoom in quickly, doesn't it? This is the section on the Maqasid, or the purposes of the revelation.
It lists the obvious stuff first. Theology, introducing creation to their creator, his names and actions, establishing proofs of oneness and the reality of the resurrection. That's the big picture stuff. Then it moves to what it calls existential purpose, telling us who we are, the stages of our creation, and our purpose of existence. It's a field guide for the human soul.
Right. Clarifying the enemy, identifying the methods and whispers of Satan, standard theological grounding.
But then it gets into what the source calls the legal and social framework. And I was genuinely surprised by the granularity of this. I mean, it regulates worship like prayer, zakat, hajj, but then it talks about debt.
It explicitly mentions writing down debts, handling mortgages, hiring practices, sales.
And family law, marriage, divorce. It actually mentions nursing and breastfeeding.
It does. It covers inheritance, the rights of parents, and specifically protecting the weak like orphans and women.
So why does a book that swears by the positions of the stars care about how I hire an employee or how a mother nurses a child?
Because in the worldview presented by this source, there is no divide between the secular and the sacred. That is a completely modern invention. The source argues that the Quran acts as a total constitution. How you treat your employee is a spiritual act. How you distribute an inheritance is an act of worship. The source is arguing that the text sanctifies the mundane parts of life. It turns a contract signing into a moment of connection with God.
So it's trying to prevent you from being a Sunday believer. It wants the text to bleed into Monday morning.
Exactly. And it gets even more micro than contracts. It goes right into your living room. The etiquette and manners section was fascinating.
Yeah, it talks about rules for entering homes. It talks about the volume of your voice.
Lower your voice. Control your tongue. It's refining the human being. The source says the goal here is purifying the soul from its ailments. It's like a holistic self-improvement program that runs from the Supreme Court down to the dinner table.
It really does claim to cover everything. A clarification for all things, as the source puts it.
It wants to shape the complete human being, not just the praying human, but the trading human, the parenting human, the neighborly human.
Now, there's one concept in this source that I think is the most poetic and honestly the most hopeful part of the whole document. We teased it at the start, the ripple effect.
Ah, yes. The chain of the best. This is one of my favorite parts of the analysis.
This is a logic chain the source builds, and I want to walk through it slowly because it's beautiful. The premise is that whatever this text touches, it transforms. It upgrades the status of anything it associates with.
It's the Midas touch of divinity. If the Quran associates with something, that thing becomes the pinnacle of its category.
So let's trace the chain described in the source. It starts with the messenger.
Right. The angel Gabriel is the one chosen to carry this revelation down. Because of that specific mission, the source says Gabriel becomes the best of angels.
Okay. Then he delivers it to a human.
The Prophet Muhammad. And because he is the recipient of this specific text, he becomes the best of prophets and messengers.
Then we look at the timing.
It was revealed in the month of Ramadan. So out of the entire calendar, Ramadan becomes the best of months.
And specifically the night it started.
The night of power. Laylat al-Qadr. Because the revelation descended then, it becomes the best night, better than 1,000 months.
And finally, the recipient group.
It was given to this ummah, this nation, so they became the best nation brought forth for mankind.
It's a cascading waterfall of bestness. It's a pattern. But here is where the source turns the camera on the reader. It says this pattern didn't end in history.
That's the crucial pivot. The source argues that this logic applies to you, today, right now. If the Quran settles in a person's heart, if you associate with it, learn it, teach it, you effectively hack this system, you join the chain, you become the best of people.
It quotes the tradition saying the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. It's offering a title.
It's offering status, real status, not the kind you get from a job title or a verified checkmark on social media. It says the people of the Quran are God's people and his special ones. It implies an intimacy. You become part of the inner circle just by engaging with the text.
But, and there's always a but, that status comes with protocol. You don't just toss a cosmic object onto the backseat of your car. The source has a whole section on glorifying the text. If this is the source of dignity, how do we treat it?
Right, and this separates the casual reader from the companion. It breaks it down into internal and external actions. You can't just respect it outwardly while ignoring it inwardly.
Let's start with the external. The source mentions purity.
Handling it only when in a state of purity. It's a physical manifestation of respect. And then there is the audio aspect, tajweed.
Now, explain tajweed for someone who thinks it's just singing or a nice melody. Because I've noticed, especially when you listen to certain specific styles, there is a very deep, almost chest-resonating sound that reciters aim for. Even American reciters doing this in English-speaking contexts will cultivate this incredibly deep, masculine, profound acoustic quality when reciting the religious Islamic script. It's not just talking.
It's definitely not just talking. Tajweed is the technical science of preservation and beautification. It's giving every single letter its specific rights, its articulation points, duration, and vocal characteristics. When you hear that very deep sound you mentioned, that chest resonance, especially from male reciters cultivating an American accent but applying it to the traditional Arabic phonetics, they are deliberately shaping their vocal tract to honor the gravity of the words. It's about not cutting corners. The source emphasizes that you can't just mumble it. You have to beautify the pronunciation. It's an act of physical service to the text.
It sounds like it demands a certain deliberateness. It forces you to engage your entire body.
It does. It demands you slow down. When you recite with proper tajweed, you are forced to pay attention to the construction of the word, and that naturally leads to the internal protocol. The source says, don't beautify the sound on the outside while ignoring the command on the inside.
That's the submission part.
Total submission. You have to have complete belief in its perfection and its sufficiency. That means making it the ultimate reference point for judgment and values. If the text says X and your political party or your culture says Y,
You go with X.
you go with X. The source says you cannot prioritize any other opinion over it. It has to be the ultimate reference point. You can't edit it to fit your lifestyle. You edit your lifestyle to fit the text. Understanding the meanings and acting upon its commands is the core internal action.
The source also locates the listener in the month of the Quran, Ramadan, and uses this as a call to action. It uses a metaphor here for the internal state. It talks about the spring of the heart.
It's a lovely image, especially given the geography of where this was revealed. In a desert, rain isn't just weather. Rain is life. It's survival. The source urges the listener to use this time as a launch pad, to live by the text, not just read it, to let the Quran be the rain that revives a dead, dry heart.
It implies that without it, we're fundamentally parched. We're spiritually dehydrated and we don't even know it.
And that connects back to the very beginning, the living companion. A dead heart can't connect with a living book. You need that rain to soften the soil so the connection can actually happen.
As we wrap this up, I want to recap our central theme. We're looking at a comprehensive, transforming force that offers dignity, guidance, and a direct connection to the divine. And regardless of your background, the text presents itself to you as a clarification for all things.
It really does.
But I'm stuck on one final image the source leaves us with. We've talked about dignity, laws, stars, and ripples. But the source ends with a courtroom scene.
The intercessor.
This gave me chills. It's the idea that this relationship isn't just for this life. It's not just about being a better person right now.
No. The source suggests that on the day of judgment, a day described as terrifying, where everyone is looking out strictly for themselves, this book takes on a form. It speaks. It argues.
It becomes a defense attorney.
An aggressive one. It acts as an active advocate that speaks on behalf of its companions in the afterlife. The source suggests it will vouch for you when it matters most. It will testify about the nights you spent with it or how it stopped you from doing wrong.
That completely reframes the relationship. You aren't just reading a paperback. You are building a relationship with your primary witness. You're prepping your defense for the ultimate trial.
It transforms the act of reading into an investment in your own salvation. It's not passive at all. It's the most active thing you can do. It changes how you look at the book sitting on your shelf. It's not furniture. It's your advocate.
So here is the final provocative thought the source essentially asks you to consider. And we'll leave you with this today. If this book, this cosmic, living, speaking entity, were to take the stand today, right now, and testify about your relationship with it, what would it say?
Would it say, I know him, we spent nights together, we are close?
Or would it look at you and say, I have no idea who this person is?
Would it testify for you or against you?
That is a heavy question, but a necessary one for anyone exploring this path. Thanks for taking this deep dive into the source material with us.
It was a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.